Syndicated presents Shep and Sean, featuring Matt Shepard and Sean Baligian.
This is Shep. I'm Sean. Hi, how are you?
Hi,
Great.
how are you?
Everything great?
Oh, everything's great. I mean, Tigers down 1-0, missed some opportunities. Bobby Witt continues to sparkle at shortstop. I think he's the second best player in the world. Yes, I said that. He's awesome. You know, it's funny. We're in a group chat and somebody said, Bobby Witt is great. I'm like, in the words of Bob Seger, shit, known that for 10 years. Yeah, he is. He's really effing good, and it's too bad Kansas City can't put a whole lot around him. You know what I mean? He's one of those players.
Shep, you know what? I was just thinking this afternoon. You and I had such a great time when we went down to Cancun a couple of years ago. Do you remember when we had fruity drinks and we floated down the lazy river together?
And we forgot to take pictures?
We took some pictures, and remember when we were holding hands? And what people don't understand is that what friends do. That's what friends do. And if you're to draw any kind of, inference in any other way, I'm going to have an issue with that.
I'm with you. We went down there to meet and try to get some inside scoop on the WNBA, didn't we? I think you were holding hands with Dawn Staley like that. She beat you.
I'll never forget.
Yeah, she beat you in an arm wrestle. And Coach Cole, the UCLA coach, she texted me the other day and said, I think that's what spurred us on to a national championship.
It was fantastic.
I was like that's
what friends do. Okay, I like lay off.
You gonna argue? You want to fight? You're gonna argue?
I dude, like whatever. Okay, whatever.
Yeah,
I think it's hysterical that they're trying to play it off the way that they are, but whatever. Did she have to resign, Shep? Do you think she had to resign? That there was no choice, she had to resign?
Not if she's telling the truth. Not if it's a girls' trip. Not if it was innocent. Not if it was one of those situations where it happened to be at the same place. I don't think she had to. I mean, go ahead and let the investigation. Go ahead, bring it on. Investigate all you want, and you'll see in the end that I'm clear. It's so different today, Sean, than way back in the day, as we all know. People are relentless, and she is getting just hammered on social media, and it's too bad. I don't like anybody, quite honestly. I don't like anybody losing their job. I mean, if they're good at it, and she sure seemed to be more than competent, I think, based on her reputation and based on all the places she's been. Unfortunately, here's what happens in this world when something like that happens. You immediately start to go, okay, how many others were there?
Yep.
How long has this been going on? And did you climb the media ladder in a way that others can't?
Yep. You have to ask yourself that question. I mean, whether people want to hear it or not, I think that's inconsequential. You have to ask that question. And again, I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm uber aware of her work. I've seen her before. I've seen some of her reports and everything. I mean, she seemed like a reporter, right? Like a dime a dozen. I just don't think, I don't think that, Shep, it's a good look when you resign. You said it very, very well. If I'm innocent, there is no lengths that I'm going to go to show that I'm. Come up with your memes, come up with your gifs, make every joke you want. Why the hell would I leave my job if I didn't do anything wrong? Why would I do that?
Her job that pays her really well and opens all these other doors to make freelance efforts too, right?
Yep.
Not to mention the fact the reputation. I'm not sure if she'll still wants to work in the business. I'm sure she wouldn't have a problem with her resume, but don't kid yourself. No matter what happens, every single time, that's going to be the whisper. That's going to be the suggestion, whether it's fair or unfair. So if you want to stay in the business, you might as well see it through. If indeed you are innocent of any of the rumors and or speculation. So just in case you do have to resign, you can get another job without any questions or dark clouds that might have to be answered and or snickered about as you move forward. Unfortunately, um, I think it's a bad look for a lot of people. I mean, now suddenly you have other reporters who are on TV saying, "Look, here's how the game is played," and you and I both know how the game is played. Most people, I hope, do, but oftentimes what beat reporters will do is they'll have a certain source, but you have to protect that source, and that's not by means of not naming them. It's by protecting them by maybe looking the other way at certain things
Yep.
or not putting their name in an article where it probably should be. So for her to do this, and now look what everybody's doing, Sean. Everybody's looking back and going, she was talking about A.J. Brown going to the Patriots. Where is she getting that inside source?
You got it.
And it's fair to speculate that now. I don't know how you can't. Sometimes, Sean, sometimes it's just common sense. I know people call it speculation, but sometimes connecting the dots really isn't that difficult. The only reason we have a hard time connecting them is because we want to be careful.
I think that's spot on. And you know, Shep, you know what the whole routine's going to be. Okay, well, what happens to Vrabel? Well, what do you think's going to happen to Vrabel? Absolutely nothing.
Right.
And if you want to talk about double standard or whatever, but I always go back to you can't have it both ways. You can't talk about professionalism. You can't do this, that, and the other thing, and then have something like this come out. There's nothing professional about it. And the brutal honesty, Shep. If Mike Vrabel was coming off a 4-13 year, okay, we're having a different conversation.
For sure.
He was 13-4 and he brought the Patriots back. Like, come on, you know?
Look. This is not just Mike Vrabel and Diana Rossini. It's not because you're absolutely right. If he had the same record as Gerard Mayo after 1 year, see you bye.
Yep.
With this attached to it, Reuben Bain Jr. What happened, being dug up of what happened to him in 2024, where he was driving a car and he was basically out of control, got in an accident, and a female passenger was killed. And people, would that, if that happened to you or me, do you not think that would be affecting our careers, our personal lives, and maybe even already been in jail for something like that?
Yep.
This is pretty common, I think. Well, we've seen it a number of times. We just saw it with Sharon Moore, for crying out loud. All right, we're seeing it with Tiger Woods. We see it with politicians. I'm not justifying it. You and I don't like it, but why are we surprised at this situation? We shouldn't be.
Shep, it's funny you bring that up because, like, I have had this conversation with my buddies more times than you can shake a stick at. I do not like to go out and have a beer. I don't like to do it because the difference between you and me and maybe some of my buddies, if I get pulled over and God forbid I blow a 0.9, I don't even know what the legal is. I don't have to gosh dang worry about it.
Yeah.
We're losing our jobs. Like, that's not negotiable. We're going to lose our jobs. I mean, you see it happen all the time in our business. And, you know, my buddy who works, I'm not going to mention any places, he's not going to lose his job. That's not going to make the news or anything like that. Not saying that'd be front page news. I hope you understand. But that would get out there. And I don't want any part of that. So I'll go to a ball game with my son, and a full disclosure, I'll have a beer early in the game. I'll have one beer early in the game, and then I'm done. I'm done. And then for the next 2 hours, I'm pounding waters, and you know me, I'm pounding as many hot dogs as I can fit down my pie hole. And then okay. I don't like my buddies, hey, let's go out and watch a game tonight. I don't want to do that. I don't want to have a couple beers and it's not going to hurt or anything like that. God forbid something like that happen, man. Just don't put yourself in positions like that. It's not that difficult.
Sean, my buddies from way back when, I mean, we're talking about grade school, some of them, we have a golf outing in the summer. And years ago, friends of mine were there, and they were getting involved in some foreign substance on my condo, because we rented condos for this golf trip. And I came back in off the porch, and I could smell it. And I said, "Hey, man," I told my buddy, I go, hey, you got to get the hell out of here.
Yep.
And he said, why? I said, because this is my condo and I'm not having that stuff in here. I can't have that stuff in here. He said, are you serious? I said, you damn right I'm serious. I said, I'm not telling you can't do it. Just get the hell out of here
Yeah.
while you're doing it. He said, you're serious, aren't you? I said, you damn right I am.
Heck yeah.
I said, I hate to tell you, dude, I'm not trying to be a Mr. Big Shot or anything. I'm just telling you, a raid happens or anything happens, and my name is recognizable. I'm linked to it. And I don't want that because I've never done it in my life. So get it out.
Yeah.
I kicked him out. Well, that's just the way it is. You're right. You can't put yourself in those types of situations. And if you do, you're really rolling the dice. And I'm a little surprised. Maybe I shouldn't be, but a little surprised that she did that because the pictures do not paint a flattering portrait by any stretch. The other thing is, obviously, I mean, think about the conversation she's having with her husband and she's having with her 2 kids.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, those are uncomfortable.
Jeez, oh Pete. You know what's interesting about it? By the way, I realize we're having issues connecting on Facebook. I put the YouTube thing up there. Hopefully that works. And that is obviously affecting the chat. But just thank you to the people that reached out. I get it. That's why I'm kind of distracted about it. Shep, the interesting thing about it as well, and I can't help but think of what is going on right now with the Red Wings and the Red Wing players and the noise and all of that. I kind of chuckle to myself because Shep, if this was Toronto, if this was Montreal, if this was New York, that is a media that's going to go after you. Period. End of story. And I thought what Coach McClellan said was great the other day because we were talking about on the hockey show last week. If you don't like being soft, don't play soft. If you don't like being called chokers late in the year, don't be chokers late in the year the last few years.
If you don't like getting booed off the ice, play better.
This is a trend now, okay? And as we've talked about, a lot of it comes back to Steve Yzerman, make no mistake about it. But Shep, that's exactly it. Like what are fans supposed to do? Like you fell apart again. You're playing for your life on Saturday, and that looked like a bad beer league game. That was, all right, boys, let's find a goalie. Shep, do you know a goalie? I might know a guy. And he comes in and he's 90 proof, and I'll do my best. And it was a bad beer league game. It didn't seem like there was any kind of intensity. There was no physicality. There was no driving and everything like that. And I couldn't help but think to myself, if this media was any different, boy, you'd really have something to complain about.
Well, I do think, in fairness to our media, I do think there are, and on top of that, they're playing it against a team that really didn't have a lot to play for. So you know that. But I think, in fairness, there are some who have written, it's time to make a change. There are some who have speculated if you've needed a change in leadership. And I don't mean just the front office. I mean in the room too, that something has to be shaken up. It's just not as prevalent as it would be in probably the other markets. I know sure as hell isn't prevalent as it would be in Toronto or Montreal. We know that. So it's when people talk about Hockey Town, you and I've had this conversation ad nauseum. It's Red Wings Town.
Yep.
I'm not sure it's Hockey Town. And I don't know what the difference is. I read something the other day, or maybe I glanced at a brief quote or something, and they were talking about who are the untradables or who are the guys you would never move. And it was Larkin, and it was Seider, and it was Raymond, and it was, I think, DeBrincat. And I said to myself, what makes us think any of these guys are untouchable? I mean, seriously, with all due respect, I mean, DeBrincat with 41 goals, it's a hell of a season, right? We act like 80 points is 150 in this town. And we want to edge a guy towards, some type of superstardom. We act like 30 goals, and I don't know what it's like. It's got to be really difficult, but we act like 30 goals is 50, and it's just not. If you want really good high-end players, then you've got to go out and get some high-end players. And how you do that shouldn't really matter who you may have to get rid of, because there's nobody on this team that has shown us that they are everything you thought and then some.
Yep. Shep, you know what? The only thing that I would say, I would put a circle around Mo Sider. I really, really like Mo Sider.
That would be the first guy for me too.
But
I don't disagree with that, but
please consider the source. A year ago at this time, I fell in love with Marco Casper. And if you told me a year ago today that guy would have 9 flipping goals on the year, I would have said, you're nuts.
I know.
I mean,
I remember that conversation, actually. I do. I remember the conversation. People, and you're not alone in that. There's a lot of people who really like Marco Casper. What I can't figure out is you bring up a couple of guys at this time of the year, and it's obviously too late, but Carter Mazur plays 12 and a half minutes. Nygaard plays 11 and a half minutes. Why aren't they playing more than, pick a random name, Mason Appleton, whatever. That turned out to be not so good of a pickup for the Red Wings either. I at some point, and I get that they were playing for a possible playoff, but at some point you would have guessed guys would have made such an impression at the AHL level, in which Grand Rapids has had a record-setting season, that they would force their way into a lineup a la Kevin McGonigal with the Tigers, and forced some of the guys who were just wearing jerseys to wear suits in the stands.
Yep. It's amazing to me, too, because if you look at what's down at Grand Rapids, and I'm not taking anything away from them, that's the AHL. Yeah. You have a bunch of veterans down there who are not NHL players.
I know.
There's no other way to say that. So somebody was like, gave that response to me the other day on the show on Woodward. And I said, do me a favor. And I said, I'm going to try to say this as non-condescending as I can.
Yeah.
Go look up their statistics and tell me who the studs are there. These are guys that are never going to see the light of day in the National Hockey League.
Well, I don't know what guys were leading the way, right? Like, if people are like, "Oh, I love this Dominic Shine." Yeah, he's older.
Yeah,
it's not like he's a Red Wings draft pick and they've been nurturing him along. He's not the equivalent to Trey Augustine. He's not the equivalent to Carter Mazur. No, those guys are biding time there. For me, you and I've had this conversation. For me, I just can't get over. I can't understand for the life of me what they are trying to hold on to because they're afraid of losing it. We just haven't seen it at the Detroit level yet.
No. And again,
then you know what's going to happen. You're going to bring up a lot of those guys as bottom 6 forwards next year. And we're going to be told, well, you got to be some patient with these guys because they're still in the learning stages. And that's where I think their biggest problem is the bottom 6. I like their top 4D. And I don't mind their top 2 lines either. I'd like more 5-on-5. I would even consider, if you look at Patrick Kane, and I wasn't a fan of bringing him back. He's been good this year. And he's been better at both ends. I know he had the terrible penalty against Minnesota. If he could be a power play guy and a third line player, then I would strongly consider bringing him back.
He said he wants to play next year. He said, I'm playing for sure next year. So whether he's interested or not, we'll find out.
Dude, it's $3 million.
Yeah.
It's not a heavy lift. He'll be on your number 1 power play unit, but he can't be in your top 6 forwards. Can't do it.
Nope. That's part of my issue because I agree with you. I think you look at the bottom 6 and so much has talked about the bottom 6. Well, then I would say, well, how good is the top 6? How good is the top? There are good pieces. Like I'm getting to the point with Lucas Raymond that we've talked about with Dylan Larkin for so many years. And what I mean by that is I am not disparaging the guy. I am not being disrespectful. I think he is what he is, Shep. I think he's going to be a good player. I think he's going to have glimpses where he looks like one of the best players on the ice. And I think he's going to have glimpses where he's not there. And when all is said and done, he's probably going to be 75, maybe 80-point player or anything like that. Yeah. And that's I think that's what he is. Who knows? Maybe there's another edge there. And, it's interesting because Shep, what can you do if you have to get creative? All right. If the reinforcements that we've been hearing so much about aren't quite ready yet. Okay. What do you have to do to get creative? You know what you have to do? You have to dangle Dylan Larkin out there. You have to dangle Alex DeBrincat out there. Those are conversations that people don't want to have. For the most part, people don't want to have those conversations.
I'm okay with those conversations. Look, DeBrinket's up after the year anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, and he's gonna cost you like $11 million in all likelihood, and he's a hell of a scorer. Look,
After next year, right? Isn't he up after next year? I think.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
After next year,
Yeah.
If you're talking about, I mean, you need goal scorers. There's not that many 40 goal scorers in the NHL. He can get you 40. That's great. He needs someone to help him set it up, right? Maybe that's Raymond. It's been Patrick Kane in his career. Fine. But if I'm going to get a superstar in return, I got to give up some of these guys, and I'd be willing to do that. I don't think there's anybody on this team that that I'm literally saying out loud, I can't bear to part with a guy like that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there's very few athletes in this town you can say that about.
No question.
Okay, you wouldn't do that for Cade Cunningham. In all likelihood, you wouldn't do it for Jalen Duren. For the Tigers,
I wouldn't do it for Tarek Scoot. Sorry.
I know a lot of people say Kevin McGonigal right now. I think it's too early to say. Everybody else, free game, maybe outside of Dylan Dingler. You really like him. Okay. The Lions have plenty of guys who you would feel like are franchise players. And that's why they're probably the most disappointing team in our city from last year. But for the Red Wings, Pistons, and Tigers, there's really not that many.
Yeah, no doubt. Austin said, I really think they should offer Sheet. Boy, the Robertson thing, local kid. I'm not going to lie. I used to see him and his family in town all the time.
My son's got one of my son's best friend played with him in when they were growing up, and never would have guessed he would have been Jason Robertson as good as he is. But came here. I don't think he's from here.
No,
he came here and played minor league hockey.
Lived in Northville. Yep. Lived in Northville. You have to do something. I couldn't agree with you more, Austin. It is time to be creative. Like that. Mm-hmm. This isn't working. Okay. Mm-hmm. This, and you know what I mean by this. Mm-hmm. His path the last few years, it's not working. That's the one thing that I can tell you definitively.
It's got to be multiple, right, Sean? It can't be just one guy. You're not going to go, okay, sorry, Larkin to Dallas for Jason Robertson, and I'm done. You've got to find some players. It's always surprising with Yzerman, who played with guys, including a friend of yours and mine, Darren McCarty, who played with an edge. Something has to change. Now, Dylan Larkin is probably being blamed for the locker room. There's better leader. You need more leadership in the locker room. I always say this. Usually there's 3 captains, right? Or there's 2 assistant captains. How come it's not on Seider? How come it's not on Raymond? Why is it always Larkin? And we don't know what he has said in that locker room. And we don't know if you've got guys who are willing to say, you know what? I'll follow him. I saw a good podcast with Jalen Rose the other day, and he said, when you get to that level, you have to learn to be a follower before a leader. Maybe some of those guys aren't very good followers.
No, I think that there's and Shep, you know what? Maybe what's the legend, the urban legend of Steve Yzerman, the master drafter? Maybe that needs to go away as well. And before somebody yells at me and says, well, you have to remember he hasn't had high picks. That's just simply not true.
Well, how high is high enough? I think not to quote a damn Yankees song. I'm just wondering, how high does he have to be? Because he picked Nikita Kucherov, and he wasn't a high pick.
Absolute coup. Shep, in order, 6, 4, 6, 8, 9. And oh, by the way, in that draft where they had 9, they also had 17. In the draft that they had 6, they also had 15. So you're talking about multiple first round.
15 was
yeah, you're talking about multiple first round picks. And I know somebody's getting ready to say, oh, here he goes again. And you're probably right. Nick Suzuki, who has 101 points and is the runaway winner with the Selke, was taken 14th overall. Cole Caulfield, who has 51 goals, played in your backyard. Okay. He was taken 15th overall. Another guy who played in your backyard, who surely was too small to do well in this league, Lane Hudson, was taken 62nd overall. Yeah. Like, Shep, when I hear that stuff, it's like, I don't want to hear that stuff. You know what I mean?
The guy before you passed on Quinn Hughes, and he was in your backyard. And I'm not saying, look, you're drafting guys at 18, so it's not really the same. Okay. I'm not saying because they've played here in the state of Michigan that you got to get every Michigander. That's not where we're going with this. But don't give me that you've got to have a number 1, 2, or third overall pick in order for you to find a difference maker.
Right.
Because in hockey, when you're drafting at 18, I mean, what would you say? Top 15, you should be happy. Top 10? How many times did you just read off the Steve Eisman had a top 10 pick? You
Mhm.
should find a guy who can be a difference maker for your team in a top 10 pick. I know it's not the NFL draft. I get that. And it's not the NBA where, if you're outside the top 6 or 7, you're probably screwed. But if you're in the top 10 in the NHL draft, you should feel like there's going to be an impact player there for you.
At the very least, have multiple guys hit. And I think that's the double whammy right now is, a lot of these guys, I brought up Marco Casper, and let me call myself out again one more time before somebody else does it. I thought there'd be a big step. There was a big step back.
Yeah.
And the ASP thing, Shep, we work with a few guys at Woodward Sports that are very enthusiastic, and I appreciate that. And I remember having a conversation with two of them. I shall not name them. And I told them back in December, this kid is overmatched. He is not physically ready for the National Hockey League. And I think that was part A, and part B's up here right now. He plays like it. He plays like a guy that knows it's upstairs right now. And I know that nobody wants to think back to the later days of the Ken Holland League era. But one of the things that Ken Holland said sticks with me about ASP. This is a man's league. Okay. That kid wasn't ready for the National Hockey League.
Agreed. Especially as a defenseman. Defenseman is a really hard transition, right?
Yeah.
Goaltender's probably the hardest, but a defenseman really difficult, and especially when they had him in the top 4.
Yep.
So we can say that he was overmatched, and you'd be right, and we could say he wasn't ready, and you'd be right. But then it gets to the point where you're like, okay, when are we going to see some of these young guys? We are pushing that envelope. The problem is they didn't have anybody else.
Yep.
Okay. So that's a massive disappointment.
Lack of depth.
I counted it up, Sean. 66 picks by Steve Eisman. 10 have had significant time in the NHL. Do you think that's a good ratio?
Yeah. That's a good call. Good call. I didn't see this. Austin said Vegas only has the Pistons at the 4th best odds to win the East. What am I missing? I don't gamble. I didn't see that story.
Jeff, and 7th overall to win the championship.
For a 60-22 team,
yeah,
who's healthy at the right time, I might add, right? Can we say that? Healthy at the right time?
Sure.
Am I missing something? I'm with you, and I don't.
I think they're missing something. Number 1 with the odds for in the East is Boston, and then it's the Knicks, and then it's Cleveland, and then it's Detroit. In the NBA overall, it's OKC, it's San Antonio, it's I don't know if it's Boston or Denver, either one, and then it's the Knicks, and then Cleveland, and then Detroit is 7. Okay, so I heard somebody say that this was Adam Schefter, which he should probably stick to football, said, I think Carolina's going to beat the Pistons. Look, maybe the Pistons love this, okay? Maybe they feel like the inability to guard the 3, or maybe more importantly, shoot the 3 is a problem. If that's the case, then you must want the Minnesota Timberwolves because they're really good at shooting the 3.
Sure.
I think Detroit has played the type of playoff style basketball all season long. I think when you can switch defenders, it's really hard to match up one-on-one against them or make it a 2-man game because they have multiple defenders who can do just that. So I think that's a massive gain for Detroit. I think as far as I'm concerned, I think they got to go to the Eastern Conference Finals for me to be considered a successful season.
I agree.
That's where they play Boston. And look, if you want to predict that Boston wins, I understand that. If you think OKC or San Antonio should have better odds than Detroit to win the NBA title, I understand that too. And to a certain extent, probably Denver. But New York and Cleveland, I've got a serious issue with that.
Shep, you better get San Antonio now because that damn Wemby is going to be a problem for years. Jeez, Pete.
Dead on.
Absolutely.
I would just say this. He still has to go through Jokic. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And that guy is turning himself into one of the greatest centers of all time. If
No argument for me.
he's not already there,
No argument for
first
me.
player to ever lead the league in rebounding and assists, and he has a career high in point score. Come on, man. I mean, and he's not even the favorite to win the MVP. I want you to think about that for a minute. It's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander who goes to the line second most to Luka Doncic, and then it's probably Victor Wembanyama. Doncic, or you look at Jokic, he's almost like an afterthought, Sean.
Jeez, oh, Pete. Jason from Escanaba. Hello, friends. Wings past the Charmin test. Feel like wiping with one ply. Jason, we were talking about earlier. Saturday was so discouraging, discomforting. Just that was a bad watch. Saturday was really a bad watch against New Jersey. Iowa forfeited games for tampering with McNamara at 23.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Jeez, oh, Pete.
I know. Kirk Ferentz. If he does it, then everybody does it, I guess.
Yeah. That is nuts. So does that mean Michigan State gets an extra win? Does Michigan State get
So
an
this
extra
is what I've always wondered about the NCAA. I mean, you could say you take that off the board. How many people remember it? Whatever. I don't.
Yeah.
I just don't get it.
No, whatever.
Speaking of football, I saw where Daniel Jeremiah, who you and I both follow, is saying Detroit's either going to get one of the two tackles if they don't get a corner. I'm not asking you who to pick. I'm just wondering, can you understand why? I'm starting to lean more toward edge than tackle on what the Lions are going to do. I would take tackle and then edge. I don't know who your favorite player in this draft is. For me, it's Ioane to Penn State. He's my favorite player.
Yeah.
And David Bailey might be second, Texas Tech for me. But can you understand why they may go edge in the first round if they really like a guy and happen to trade up to get a certain individual?
Shep, you know what? Do I want an edge? Yep, absolutely, positively. Do you know what I've learned beyond a shadow of a doubt? Brad Holmes just does not put the premium on that other edge that I do. That's what I've learned. When you look at all the other people that he's gotten to play on the other side, okay, the other side of Hutch, okay, and we know all the names, he just doesn't. So what I want, and I think what you want, until proven otherwise, it doesn't matter. I think if he was going to do that, maybe he comes back in the second round, the kid from Missouri or the kid from Illinois. Maybe he does that with the edge.
Illinois,
yeah. Maybe he does that with an edge. But I
like that. I like that idea.
This screams tackle to me. It does. It screams tackle to me
because of the depth.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's pretty much Proctor or Freeling right now. That as you get closer to the draft, we really start to hear more of what teams are really thinking. I mean, you know that better than anybody. Boy, doesn't it seem like those are the two names that keep popping up? I mean, unless he goes with the IOL, and he very well may.
No, he won't be there. Ioane, the guard from Penn State,
think he's gone?
Oh yeah,
okay.
He'll be gone. I personally, I think he's. I think he's better than Mauioa. I do at what he does. He's a mauler. I think he's a plug-and-play guy. You put him there, and for 10 years, he's going to be really good for you. Blake Miller is the other name that I've heard from Clemson. He's a right tackle, 54 starts, only missed one practice his entire career, set a Clemson record for number of offensive snaps in a career. So I'm seeing Proctor, Miller, and Monroe Freeling. I've been on the Monroe Freeling thing for 2 months. Some people are worried about the number of starts, 18 in his career. I'm not sure he's going to be there. I could see Proctor being there. I could see Miller being there. I could see the kid from Arizona State being there. And then a couple of edge rushers. So I think they're going to have a pick of a really good player. And I think it's a player who can plug and play. But after what Brad Holmes said about Larry Borum the other day, knowing that the offense is in a lot better spot than the defense, I do wonder if edges might be the play, especially if they trade up.
It's interesting because again, especially once you get into the second round, it depends where you're looking at, like where Zion Young is, or the other kid that a lot of people, the kid from UCF, Malachi Lawrence, people are saying, oh, this kid might be better than anybody thinks and might go higher than anybody thinks. Shep, would I love an edge? Absolutely.
I like Cassius Howell from Texas A&M.
Right.
Maybe in the second round.
Shep, I'm a big fan, and I know you and I have talked about this before. Tony Dungy years ago said the NFL right now is what can your quarterback do to a defense and how can you make a quarterback's life miserable? Okay. Mm-hmm. And Brad himself has said, these aren't my words. Brad himself has said, sometimes you get gassed if you're chasing the quarterback around too much. Oh, okay. That's just to me, I disagree with that. And I think, again, we've seen that. Okay, let's try Hassanin. Let's try he whose name I dare not mention that rhymes with Ravenport. We've seen so many guys, and maybe Hassanin is the fit. I don't know.
Maybe DJ Wanham's the fit too.
Right. Maybe DJ Wanham. He
thought Tyrus Wheat might be the fit.
He plays for snaps, but I
get somebody who's actually done it and a guy who you feel really good about. Like if Akeem Messidor is there, although I would say this, he's 25.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as that draft pick is made and the first time he gets hurt, people would say, why does Brad always draft injured players? He's had surgery on his left foot, surgery on his right foot, and he's had a shoulder injury.
Yeah, that's great. All right. Anything else before we get out of here? I want to watch the Tigers get shut down again. It's one of my favorite things. Once a week, I need to.
They're only down 1-0. The problem is it's in the top of the 8th, and it's Will Vest against Bobby Witt. If they lose 1-0 to Kansas City, Sean, Kansas City is 26th in the league in runs scored. They've scored 54 runs. Bobby Witt coming into the game tonight was on base 28 times and scored 1 run this year.
Is that good? Is that a good average? I like when he's edge to Brad is what a 1C is to Steve. That's great. All right. Make sure you check Shep out in the morning and in the afternoon with Braylon Edwards. You guys be good. We'll talk to you soon. Okay. Bye. Your watch.
Shep and Sean, featuring Matt Shepard and Sean Baligian. Executive produced by Sean Baligian and Todd Losey. Theme song, incidental music, and related sound effects are from Still Alive by Anti-Ghost. Engineering, mixing, and graphic design support provided by the Unsyndicated Podcast team. Don't forget to like and subscribe on all your favorite channels. While you're there, be sure to rate and review the podcast. Call the Unsyndicated hotline at 248-237-3257.